Hi, welcome back to the Fragrance Standard, where I bring you honest reviews about fragrances so you guys don't have to waste your money. I hope you're all well. Thank you for the people that have subscribed and watched and commented. Really appreciate it. As you can see, we're a brand new channel, so I really need your support and subscriptions. And being a brand new channel, that means I'm not influenced at the moment by money. I hope to never be influenced by money itself. I do have another YouTube channel that is monetized and fairly successful, and I've never taken a paid promotion, like to lie about a product on there. I've declined a lot of paid promotions on there. And obviously, being a brand new channel here in the fragrance world, no one's about to donate me any money to kind of get me to say anything. So I think this is a good time to get this video out the way, and I want to address the subject of clones because there are a whole gamut of videos out there. It's kind of the trend at the moment. People are promoting clones of very expensive fragrances, and they're promoting them in a way that makes it appear that those clones are so close to the real thing that instead of paying £280 that you can simply pay, you know, £30 instead, or $40, whatever it is, and you're basically getting the same experience. And I wanted to investigate that, so I bought some clones, you know, the ones that are viral or have been viral, that are very popular, and I've got the real fragrance here as well. And I was kind of shocked because I don't think they were that close to each other. I think it was pretty apparent which one was a clone, even to my amateur nose. I want to go through what I discovered and kind of lift the lid on the situation slightly. Now, one interesting point is a couple of these clones I actually tried before I'd smelt the real thing. So I just bought the clones because they were viral, and then I had to go and source the fragrance, the OG itself, to do this comparison for the video. And one of the things that kind of took me by surprise was that when I first smelt the clones, I wasn't impressed at all. And I thought, wow, if these are supposed to be close, you know, the real thing, what are people thinking? Why are people paying so much money for the real deal when the clone smells this awful? Surely the real thing can't be this awful as well. I then went on to obviously purchase the real thing, in some cases a full bottle. In most of these cases I've just got samples either from friends that had them, or I've ordered a small sample online. And of course they weren't awful. Not all of them were up my street as fragrances I would wear, but they certainly weren't awful. So let's start with one of my favourite fragrances in the world, and from one of my favourite houses, Initio. And this is Oud for Greatness, obviously, and we have here a clone, which, I mean, if we look, there's visible differences, but we can see what the house there was trying to do. They clearly are doing a pretty close mimic, and I think they call this one Oud for Glory. And you know, in the reviews, if you watch online, they're supposed to be very close to each other. And I've already sprayed them on strips, because one of the things I will say is that when you first spray these clones, they do tend to smell noticeably different on first spray. They are kind of harsher. Some of them have a little bit more of an alcohol vibe than the real deal, so I think it's quite apparent when you first spray them. But there's also differences in the dry down. So we have the real Oud for Glory here, which smells amazing. It's complex, you can pull different notes out of it. And then we have this clone of it, which, yes, they're a similar smell, but they're similar in the way that if I photocopied the Mona Lisa, it would be 95% similar to the real Mona Lisa. One of them you can stand in front of, you can walk up to, and you can pick out the different brush strokes. You can get a sense of emotion from it. It evokes something deep within you. It brings people to tears. It causes people to stand in front of it for 2 hours. The other one might hold your interest for a couple of minutes. It's kind of a 2D version of something in 3D. It seems almost flat in comparison, and they are very similar. They're both the same picture. If you looked at both of them from a distance and someone said, "What's that?" you would say it's the Mona Lisa, you know, and there's two of them. And then as you walked up and realised one was actually painted by hand and was the original, and the other one was just a kind of bad photocopy of it, it would lose a lot of interest for you. And that's kind of how I feel with these, is that if you just bought the clone and you never had any experience with the original product, you would be kind of happy because it hasn't really cost you much money and it kind of smells okay, it's similar, and there's nothing really to compare it against. But when you really put your nose to both of these, like I said, with the original I can pull the different notes out of it, and I almost get a feel that all those notes combine to give me that feeling of a scent, you know, that it's the combination together that I can either pull apart or I can take as a whole, and that gives me that kind of beautiful scent. And throughout the day you capture different parts of those notes, and that's kind of part of the fun of wearing high-end fragrance, is these sort of little wafts that you get and different kind of smells coming off, and they change throughout the day. That's what I really enjoy. That's part of the ownership, you know, when you buy into something a little more expensive. And I don't get that with this. You know, I get a slight change when you first spray it on to dry down, but to me, that's how I would describe it, is 2D. It's just as if someone's taken that fragrance as a whole, replicated it, instead of replicating each note and carefully putting them together in a kind of structured and smooth way, they've just replicated the entire fragrance as a whole, and it seems kind of flat. So it smells to me like what it's worth. You know, if you wanted to spend £30 on a fragrance and you kind of like the smell of it, cool. And I get that there's two different types of people. You know, there's people that can afford to spend £280 and there's people that can't afford to spend £280. But I would also say, in this modern day, if you lived in a kind of civilized country and you're someone who spends £3.50 a day on ridiculous cups of coffee from Starbucks, then you probably realistically could buy yourself a fragrance, maybe once a year, a really high-end fragrance, and really value and enjoy that. The strength and quality of that fragrance means you don't have to put like 10, 15 sprays of it on. You know, you could put 2 or 3 sprays on, go out, and it would be with you most of the evening if you buy something that's got a bit of longevity. Certainly, and Initio will do that, you know, all day long. I absolutely love Initio, and I will be reviewing some on the channel. I'm just waiting for another bottle to turn up. Everything I'm buying is on my own at the moment, so, you know, and I'm not rich by any means, so you have to bear with me. I'm trying to sort of build some stuff up so I can do some group reviews. This is an English dupe house, or they say they're English. Noted Aromas, they call this one Rome, which is supposed to be a dupe of Creed Aventus. I used to have an Aventus, but I don't particularly wear Aventus anymore, just because in the job that I'm in, it's really common. There's like 70% of the people walking around have got Creed Aventus on. I still love it, it's a great smell, but I just would like to be a bit different from the crowd, so I didn't buy another bottle of that. So yeah, I mean, yeah, that to me, it does smell like Aventus, but it's like an Aventus with grapefruit, because I think, again, where they haven't got that kind of combination of notes quite right, and they've just copied the smell as kind of a flat 2D image of a smell, if you like. Yeah, far more complex. You actually get a sense of different types of fruit there, and it's a more bassy smell in the fruit. This one is a very sort of high-pitched fruit smell, almost borderline sort of minty fresh. It's like a minty fresh grapefruit, whereas the original, I can smell different types of fruit in there. I can smell some pineapple, I can smell some lemon, maybe a bit of sweetness from apple, a hint of kind of cherry type fruit in there. Then there's some woods and mossy smells in the background, a little bit musky. There's so many things that you can pull out of that. You just know you're smelling something of high quality, and when you wear it, again, you get these little wafts of notes coming through, and, you know, as your body warms up, those start to change. It's not unpleasant by any means, but it's certainly not a one-on-one dupe. You can tell that it's a lot cheaper just from the smell of it. It's something that I would spray all over myself if I wore to the gym. It doesn't have great longevity. You know, it's not leaving a sort of sillage trail behind you. It's not projecting particularly well, but I would use it as like a gym fragrance. And I mean, this one I actually use to spray in my boots because, you know, boots get a bit whiffy, so you sort of Febreze them, leave them outside, and when I bring them back in, I spray some of that in there. And sometimes I spray some around the bedroom just to make the bedroom smell a bit nicer, but it's not something I would spray on myself if I've got the real thing. Ombre, which obviously is a copy of Ombre Nomade. The copy here, it reminds me of Ombre Nomade. It's very heavy on, like, it smells like a synthetic oud to me, and maybe some benzoin. You know, it's leaning very much towards that way, almost verging on a kind of quite sickly smell, which is not that pleasant. It does remind me of Ombre Nomade in a kind of least classy way possible. You know, to me, again, it smells like the amount of money I paid for it, which I think was about £30. It's not the worst smell in the world for £30. Again, it's something I'd probably spray on to go to the gym, spray in my gym bag to make that smell nicer, whatever. It's something I'd use as a room scent. It's not unpleasant, it's just not high quality. And then thank you to my good friend Gary, who sent me just a small sample of the real Ombre Nomade, because it's not something I've got at the moment. A completely different smell altogether. It's lost that kind of dank, almost wet clothes kind of oud smell that is with the ombre, which really kind of drags it down. It's a quite a musty, unpleasant smell. Whereas with this, I'm picking up rose, incense, amberwood, like some oud, but a quality oud in the background. You know, you can pull this apart and it's actually high quality, and they all combine to give you that beautiful fragrance. You know, the real one is an absolute quality fragrance, and I will buy that because I'm a huge lover of oud. But yeah, a totally different experience. You know, the Louis Vuitton Ombre Nomade is quality, it smells quality. Is it worth £320 or any of these fragrances? We could argue that all day. You know, I don't know if they're worth the money that we pay for them. I'm sure that there's a nice profit margin there. What I do know is that I like quality fragrance, and one of these is quality, and the clones are clearly a step down. So personally, I can afford to buy £200 to £300 bottles of fragrance because I don't drink, I don't go out going crazy clubbing or anything like that. I would rather go out somewhere nice and quiet with my wife, do something nice in the day, and smell really good while I'm doing it. So that's where I spend my money. This one here, you probably know, is one of the most famous clones of all. It's a clone of Altair by Parfums de Marly. I haven't got any Parfums de Marly. I do like a couple of their fragrances. It's just not something I've ever purchased as yet. I will, but that's probably not my favourite of the Parfums de Marly line, I must admit. It's a little bit too sweet for me. I have smelt it many, many times now because it's a really, really popular fragrance. I think it's one that if I owned it and wore it on skin for a while, it's the kind of thing that I could imagine growing on me. So I probably have to buy some and give it a chance. But this is pretty gross. It is really cloying. You know, I don't think there's a good comparison there at all. I've heard lots of people talking about it's like 98% close. Again, I return to, you know, if I take a picture of a piece of beautiful artwork, it's just a picture of a piece of beautiful artwork. It has its merits to remind you of that beautiful artwork, but it's not the same thing. It lacks that kind of passion, you know, that some artist somewhere has developed these fragrances and spent hours and hours you know, coming up with these combinations of notes, making sure that they're all rounded off nicely together, making sure that the combination plays with each other really well and produces this beautiful scent at the end of it. And then someone else has just come along and used chromatography or mass spectrometry or whatever to copy it, so they haven't got that kind of artistic input. And I'm guessing they're just thinking, yeah, that's pretty close enough, that'll do, it's the overall smell covered, and it's just not, it's not the same. Lastly, we have this one from Rayhan. I can't remember the name of it, but I do know it's supposed to be a clone of Outlands by Amouage. I absolutely love Amouage. Again, not something that I've bought into because I think I need to spend quite a bit of time. There isn't an Amouage near me at all. I smell them when I travel, you know, and I've been tempted before, but to me they're things that are quite intricate and quite complex, and you need to kind of spend a little bit of time with them to really understand which ones suit your skin. but they are beautiful fragrances. And here we have, I bought a sample of Outlands so we could do a comparison, and this one is the dupe, the clone, which again has that kind of wet, earthy, not particularly pleasant smell. It's a little bit cloying in the background. Some fragrances can smell wet and earthy and they can kind of get away with it, but this one, it's just, it leads with that, you know. This has already dried down, so to me, yeah, that's not particularly pleasant. And then the real Outlands, again, completely different fragrance. There is a hint of that kind of damp smell there, which I think is a combination of like the frankincense and the benzoin and maybe a little of the oud, but it's in the most pleasant way. Like I said, you can have these kind of damp smells, these damp woody smells in the background, and they really help balance a fragrance out. Or you can like lead with that, and that's literally the only thing you can smell, and that isn't particularly pleasant at all. But in this one I can also smell, you know, there's some rose in there, there's cardamom, there's good quality oud obviously, there's lemon, amber, and then almost a salty kind of vibe as well, which I'm guessing may even be ambergris. But it's a beautifully complex fragrance. It smells very complex. I've no doubt it's got a lot of different notes there. Again, I'll probably do some detailed breakdowns on Amouage in the future because I love their stuff. It's just not something I've bought any of at the moment. I'm buying as many as I can, so you just have to bear with me. But a fantastic fragrance. I would wear that all day long. I personally wouldn't wear the dupe of that at all, and I don't even think I want my room smelling like that, because it just leads with that very sort of dark, damp kind of smell. It's like a kind of rotten oud, you know, but not in a good way. It's not animalic oud, it's just kind of dank. I guess if you bought some really good quality oud wood and then kind of left it in a wet room for a few weeks and came back to it, it would have that kind of musty, unpleasant smell to it. So yeah, I'm not impressed with any of these clones, unfortunately. I mean, it's impressive that these guys can take this, that they can take something and clone it to be anywhere near, frankly. You know, I'm not a perfumer, I'm not a scientist that deals with this kind of thing, so of course that's impressive, but it's not something that I would personally buy other than just to make this video. Now, these houses themselves aren't actually bad. You know, I have bought a couple of other things from them that weren't clones, that weren't direct dupes, and they're really good. You know, so I bought this, which obviously is supposed to kind of look like, or an Initio fragrance, but it's actually its own thing. They call that Honor and Glory, and it really smells amazing. I wear this to the gym a lot, and it's not something I would normally kind of rock, but for like a gym fragrance, it's really, really good. So to me that smells like a mango smoothie. It's like a Middle Eastern mango smoothie, I suppose, but it's really fresh smelling. It needs a couple of weeks to macerate. You know, when I first got it, I wasn't overly impressed, and I thought I'll leave it a couple of weeks, because I'm pretty sure these guys just mass produce. They don't probably macerate the product for long periods of time, because it's like a get them out the door as quick as possible mass production situation. They're only cheap, and I think it really pays then, if you're buying these cheaper fragrances, to let them sit around. The same as some of the designer stuff. You know, if you let it sit for a few weeks, it generally improves, whereas most of the niche stuff I've had, I think the niche guys know what they're doing when it comes to macerating and looking after fragrance, making sure you're getting a good product. So generally speaking, I haven't found that with the niche, but certainly with these, they generally improve with age. This one, obviously trying to kind of mock Angel Share in a way, slightly different shaped bottle. This is Camera Kawa, but it's not Angel Share. It's its own thing again. Actually comes in a really nice bottle, nice and heavy glass, and absolutely beautiful. You know, it's like cinnamon apple pie with some booze thrown in there. It's really kind of makes me hungry for something really nice for desserts. But yeah, really beautiful. I absolutely love that smell, and sometimes I just put that on when I'm going to bed just so I can smell it on myself, because it's kind of such a warming, pleasant smell that sends me off to sleep in a kind of a nice mood. So that gives you an idea of how much I like it. You know, I'm just doing it to please myself, and yeah, it's beautiful. So that's from Lattafa, and you know, I'm not having a go at these guys because they can clearly produce really nice fragrance. We got this one which has gone pretty viral. Again, it's not a direct clone of anything. I think these are what I would call inspired by, which they've taken a kind of idea from someone else and maybe run with it a little. So that, to me, I think they took like an influence from like God of Fire vibe, but not directly, just that vibe, and then a kind of Middle Eastern vibe from the Oud, and combined those two together, and they've made their own thing. And this is almost like they've taken like Angel Share and then they've combined it with a gourmand coffee and something a little bit chocolatey, so again, become its own thing. And Hawass Ice, fresh, fruity, plummy, a little bit spicy, really intriguing fragrance. I love wearing this to the gym, or if I'm kind of out on a really hot day. It's quite a cooling fragrance despite it having that sort of plummy vibe. It's hard to explain because it acts like a freshie, but it's also got some kind of deeper tones to it, so it plays between the two. So again, that's from Rasazi. So these guys absolutely can make quality fragrance that will stand up on its own 2 feet. It may have been inspired by something else, but they're not direct clones. And I think that when they actually use someone to blend a perfume, that it comes out a hell of a lot better than when they just copy these things using chromatography. Frankly, it's plagiarism. You know, it's no different to copying someone's poems and presenting it in a slightly cheaper, slightly shoddier. It's not really the way that one should play cricket, let's be honest. So I hope that helps you guys make some decisions here if you're someone who's thinking about spending money on clones or dupes. I mean, one thing I will say is the people I know that like to do that, they kind of get addicted to it, and they end up spending £200 or £300 on loads and loads of different clones and dupes. And my argument would be, you could have bought one bottle of absolute quality for that and smelt like $1 million. Instead, you've got, you know, choices to smell like £30, and you've got multiple different versions of £30 smell. Or you could walk around smelling like £300. I know which one I would pick. I would pick a fragrance that I really, really liked, and I would just go and buy the real version of that. There's deals to be had out there. I'll stick a couple of places I use up below. I think one's called All Beauty. The other one is based in Spain. They send over to the UK, and there's some sort of lower tax thresholds and whatever that make them a little bit more sensible to buy from if you're here in the UK. Obviously, if you're elsewhere in the world, you know, I can't make great recommendations there yet because I simply don't use anyone in America or Canada. I have heard that Joma Shop, I think they're called Joma Shop, are going to be sending over to the UK soon. They've got some fantastic prices as well, so I hope to see that happening. And when it does, I'll let you guys know. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know what your experience has been with dupes, clones, whether you agree with them, whether you think they're good, whether you think they are necessary in the industry. I would love to hear your comments. If you like the same stuff that I like, if you're into your Initios, or you're thinking of buying Ombre, Nomade like I am, then chuck a comment down below. Thanks for watching. Take care. I'll catch you all next time.